was a friend, and he was dead. That's reason enough, I would think. It has been reason enough for me, and I would venture to say that at some point it has probably been reason enough for you as well. A friend is dead, and you weren't there. You didn't get to say what you wanted to say or do what you wanted to do, and now it is too late because he is dead. That is reason enough, I would think. But there's more. His family is there. One sister is crying so much she can barely even talk. Sometimes that's enough, isn't it? Sometimes it's enough just to see someone else crying, overcome with so much emotion. The other sister's trying to be strong, step up her lip, trying to say what she is supposed to say at a time such as this, a bit about faith, a bit about God. Sometimes that's enough too. To see someone obviously hurting and stricken, trying so hard to be strong and dutiful and faithful. Sometimes that's enough. There are mourners there as well, all dressed in black, going through the rituals of mourning. Sometimes that in itself is enough. The ritual. It brings back memories. It's the same every time, the familiar prayers, the familiar hymns, the laments, the songs, the words of comfort. It's the same then, and it was the same time for you when you lost, when you mourned. And all those memories come flooding back. And often that is enough. There's a lot going on in this passage from the Gospel of John. A lot of emotion, a lot of circumstance, and a lot of pain. Just one of these things is enough to make you or I weep, cry. But I can't help but wonder, what made it enough for God to weep too? Have you ever thought about that? What was it that caused God Almighty to weep? It's the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. When he had to choose one verse to memorize in confirmation class, he chose this one. Jesus wept. It's like when you have to choose a poem, you choose William Carlos Williams. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow. Sitting in a corner with rain. I forget the rest of it, but it's like 3 lines. It's about a wheelbarrow in a corner with some rain, and you're done. You memorize it short as Jesus wept. But why? God incarnate, the Logos, the Word made flesh, wept. Was it sadness over a friend's death? Was it seeing a beloved friend and disciple cry? Was it Martha's strength? Was it the ritual of the mourners? Or was it something else? What could bring God to tears? Well, John doesn't say exactly. And none of the disciples thought to ask, or if they did, it was too private of a conversation to record for countless future generations. Some things are better left said only once, never to be repeated. I don't know. Did they ask? Did they not ask? We don't know. Did they even see? Did anyone really notice, for the most part, Jesus weeping? Whether asked or unasked, the question is not answered for us explicitly. What made God weep? That doesn't stop us from wondering, though. Maybe Jesus is caught up in the emotions that surround him. The mourning, the wailing, the anger, the wondering, what if? Jesus was very close to this family. Perhaps their pain was his pain, their sorrow, his sorrow. Maybe God weeps with us. Maybe God weeps for tears that fall around him. Maybe God weeps for tears that are shed now. Chapter 11 is really the turning point of the Gospel of John. Things start going downhill after that. The people see Jesus call Lazarus out from the tomb, and they say, whoa, wait a minute here. This Jesus must die. Things started getting hot and heavy for Jesus after this. This is kind of the tipping point in the Gospel of John. It all starts going downhill for Jesus, but uphill towards Jerusalem, to Passion Week, to Golgotha. Maybe Jesus saw it on the horizon. Maybe he saw the pain that death caused his friends here, Mary and Martha. And he knew the path he was walking down, the way he was going to lead to his death. And he knew it was going to cause the same grief among his friends. Maybe he knew that the pain he was seeing now was going to be the pain his disciples were going to experience very soon. Maybe God weeps for the tears that are yet to fall. Or is it because death has become all too common and all too familiar? Sometimes a thing can be feared so much for so long that anger at it ceases to work, hiding from it ceases to work. All that can be done is just weep in the face of it. Jesus knows death well, and we will become more intimate with it very soon. Maybe God weeps for tears that have fallen through the ages. There's another story in which Jesus weeps, not over one person or one family, but over a whole city, a whole nation, a whole tribe of people. In Luke, Jesus weeps over Jerusalem. He weeps over their fate, not their fate that's predetermined or written in stone, but the fate he knows their current path will lead them to. We all have probably known people who exhibit self-destructive behavior. Adam was a year behind me in high school. He came to church, he came to youth group, and the leaders put a lot of time into Adam. He was smart, he was very charismatic, friendly, very popular, but he was also known to be a pretty heavy drinker and partier. I know our leaders tried to protect him, tried to turn his life away from all that. Who knows what all they did? But I do know they loved him. I wonder if they ever wept thinking of Adam, knowing they had done so much, but also knowing it wasn't and probably wouldn't ever be enough. I wonder if they ever wept thinking of his future. I wonder this because I know they did weep for him eventually, just last year, when he was driving home drunk without a seatbelt and flipped his car. They wept for him at his graveside as Jesus wept for Lazarus. But I wonder if they wept for him as Jesus wept over Jerusalem, knowing in some way what the future might hold. Have you ever wept over someone like that? You've tried, and you know what's going to happen to them. You tried to show, you tried to say, look, this is where your path is going. This is what's going to happen if you don't stop, if you don't change. And you try as hard as you can, but nothing you do seems to get through, and you just know what's going to happen. You just know one day you're going to get a phone call. You just know one day you're going to read in the newspaper. You just know one day you're going to shed tears over this person, and so you start shedding them now because you know the pain is going to come. You know it seems almost inevitable, and you just weep. Jesus, sitting over Jerusalem, looks at the city, and he knows what's going to happen to him. He knows the path they're going down. He says, yeah, I know where you're going. I've tried. But you didn't recognize. You didn't change when you had the chance. And he knows what's going to happen. And in a few short years after Jesus' death, around 40, the Romans do come in. They tear down the temple. They destroy the city. He knows. And he weeps. Do you think God has ever wept over you? Do you think God has ever wept over you as God wept over Jerusalem? Tears formed from frustration,